The sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows over the desolate stretch of Route 66. Jenna and Mike were on a cross-country road trip, seeking adventure and thrills. They'd heard rumors of an old abandoned highway that ran parallel to the main route, promising a shortcut that could save them hours of driving. Little did they know that this decision would lead them into a nightmarish encounter. As their car rumbled down the cracked asphalt, Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The wind whispered through the tall gnarled trees that lined the road, creating an unsettling melody that sent shivers down her spine.
Mike, do you feel that?
Jenna asked, her voice trembling. Mike glanced at her, his eyes wide.
Yeah, it's like someone's watching us. But there's no one here, just trees and darkness.
The headlights illuminated a rusted, weather-beaten sign that read, "Welcome to Silent Hollow." Unsettled, they continued their journey. Suddenly, the car's engine sputtered, and the headlights flickered, casting them into darkness. Jenna's heart pounded as Mike tried to restart the engine, but it refused to cooperate.
Maybe it's just a battery issue,
Mike said, attempting to stay calm. They stepped out of the car into the inky blackness. An eerie silence enveloped them, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. That's when they heard it, a faint ghostly whisper carried on the wind. "Help us." Jenna and Mike exchanged horrified glances. There was no one in sight, but the whispers persisted, growing louder and more desperate. They followed the voices deeper into the woods. As they walked, the trees seemed to close in on them, forming a suffocating tunnel. Jenna's flashlight flickered, casting unsettling shadows that danced on the trees. Mike's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Turn back now." Panic surged through them, but they couldn't find their way back to the car. The voices became clearer, and they stumbled upon a decrepit, abandoned house shrouded in mist. With trepidation, they entered the house. The air inside was ice cold, and the walls were adorned with faded photographs of people they didn't recognize. An old gramophone crackled to life, playing a hauntingly beautiful melody. And then from the darkness, figures began to emerge. Ghostly apparitions, their faces twisted in agony, whispered tales of tragedy and loss. They were the lost souls of Silent Hollow, trapped between worlds, seeking release. Jenna and Mike tried to flee, but the house seemed to shift and change, its layout becoming a nightmarish maze. The apparitions reached out, their fingers icy to the touch, pulling them deeper into the house's dark history. Hours turned into days, and Jenna and Mike were never seen again. Some say they became part of the haunted legend of Silent Hollow, forever bound to the forsaken highway, where the lost souls of travelers still whisper their chilling stories to those who dare to wander into the darkness. Been fascinated by Route 66, the allure of the open road, the promise of adventure, and the thrill of the unknown had led her to embark on a solo journey down this historic highway. As she drove through the vast empty stretches of desert, she couldn't help but notice an old weathered billboard looming in the distance. The billboard, which stood alone against the barren landscape, was a relic from a bygone era. Its once vibrant colors had faded to a ghostly gray, and the wooden planks were warped and cracked. What caught Amelia's attention, however, were the cryptic messages scrawled across it in peeling paint. "Beware the curve ahead," read the first message, accompanied by a crude rendering of a twisted road. Amelia slowed her car, curiosity piqued. She had heard rumors about the cursed billboard, how it seemed to predict the deaths of passing motorists. It was said that those who tried to investigate its source encountered terrifying supernatural forces. As she contemplated her options, a sudden unease washed over her. She felt compelled to heed the warning and continue cautiously. But her sense of adventure and the desire to unravel the mystery pushed her forward. The road wound around a desolate canyon, the curve so sharp, it felt as if the highway itself was coiled like a serpent waiting to strike. Amelia's heart raced as she navigated the treacherous bend, the eerie words of the billboard echoing in her mind. Just as she emerged from the curve, her headlights revealed another message. "Fate awaits," it read, followed by an image of a grim reaper-like figure. Amelia's palms grew sweaty as she drove on, now gripped by a growing sense of dread. The messages on the billboard were no longer just warnings. They felt like prophecies, guiding her toward an unknown doom. After hours of relentless driving, fatigue began to overtake her. She decided to pull over and rest for a while. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows over the desolate landscape. As she reclined her seat and closed her eyes, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her from the darkness outside. Suddenly, her car's engine died, and the headlights went out, plunging her into total darkness. Panic surged through her as she fumbled for her flashlight and attempted to restart the engine, but it remained lifeless. Amelia's heart pounded in her chest as she heard a whisper in the wind, faint yet unmistakable. "You should have listened." In the darkness beyond her car, the figure of the Grim Reaper from the billboard materialized. It glided toward her with a bone-chilling presence, its skeletal hand reaching out as if to claim her soul. Terrified and helpless, Amelia realized the truth too late. The cursed billboard had not warned her. It had summoned the very forces it foretold. The road that seemed to coil like a serpent had led her straight into the clutches of a malevolent entity. As the Reaper's icy touch closed around her, the billboard's final message flashed in her mind: no escape. And on that lonely stretch of Route 66, under the watchful eye of the cursed billboard, Amelia's fate was sealed, joining the ranks of those who had ventured too close to the highway's sinister secrets. The Eternal Feast Route 66 had always been a beacon for adventurers seeking the thrill of the open road. John and Emily, a young couple in search of adventure, had embarked on a cross-country journey that led them to this desolate stretch of the legendary highway. As the clock struck midnight, they found themselves navigating the twisting roads under the moon's cold gaze. Suddenly, a ghostly glow appeared on the horizon. A deserted truck stopped that stood like a specter in the night. The neon sign flickered, casting an eerie, pulsating light that seemed to beckon them closer. With their stomachs growling and their curiosity piqued, they pulled into the forlorn parking lot. Inside, the truck stop was frozen in time. The jukebox played a haunting tune, its melodies echoing through the empty diner. Emily and John exchanged glances, their unease growing with each step. The place was staffed by waitresses in faded, tattered uniforms, their eyes hollow and their smiles unnaturally wide. Ignoring their apprehension, John and Emily took a seat at the counter. The waitress, whose name tag read Mabel, approached with a worn menu. Her voice was a monotone whisper as she recited the night's specials. "The special of the night is the Eternal Feast," Mabel droned, her voice sending shivers down John and Emily's spines. Unnerved but curious, they ordered the special, thinking it was just a clever gimmick of the haunted truck stop. The food arrived promptly, a heaping plate of steaming, unidentifiable meat and vegetables. The aroma was overpowering, both enticing and nauseating. With each bite, the couple found themselves sinking deeper into a nightmarish trance. Time blurred as they consumed the sinister dish, unable to stop, even as they felt their senses slipping away. The ghostly waitresses watched with hollow eyes, their smiles growing wider and more malevolent. Suddenly, John and Emily snapped back to reality. They were back at the counter, but the truck stop had transformed. The once empty diner was now crowded with spectral patrons, all trapped in the same never-ending cycle of horror. The jukebox played the same haunting tune on an endless loop. Desperate to escape, John and Emily tried to flee, but the door wouldn't budge. The ghostly waitresses cackled, their laughter echoing through the diner like a death knell. Days turned into weeks, and John and Emily were trapped in the truck stop's nightmarish loop. They watched in horror as other unsuspecting travelers stumbled in, ordered the Eternal Feast, and became prisoners like themselves. As they consumed the cursed food, their life force drained away, and their bodies grew gaunt and pale. They were now part of the spectral staff, forced to serve the never-ending feast to new arrivals, all while trapped in their own personal hells. No one knew how many had fallen victim to the truck stop's curse, and no one would ever escape its clutches. Route 66, once a symbol of adventure, had become a desolate highway leading only to the phantom truck stop, a place where time stood still, and the Eternal Feast continued to devour lost souls, one traveler at a time.